Hey guys, I'm Jonathan. This is Vocational Ministry, and today I'm going to do a review, just a basic review of the Simplified King James Version. So let's get right into it.
I just want to do this video, and before I do, just in case, let me turn this off. I hope it turn off my Bluetooth. There we go. Let me turn that off just in case it wants to interfere. But this might be my last review as far as the Bible itself, the SKJV. My next reviews on it will be, or my next videos on it will be, quoting certain verses and passages of Scripture from the SKJV. I don't know if you noticed or not, but you can't just say SKJV. You have to explain to, if you go online, you type in SKJV, they think that you misspelled the word KJV. You have to explain to them you're talking about the Simplified King James Bible. It's the SKJV, but it's still getting its name out there. It has not been put on any Bible app accounts yet, and I'm just wondering how they're going to treat the SKJV, and I'm hoping and praying that this Bible, there's people that have criticized the King James and have said, please, why didn't y'all give the King James the King James an update, a King James update, okay? And I've said in videos, I've said that, the reason why the critical text is able to say what it says about the King James, the critical text lovers, that is, and put the King James through all this scrutiny and attack is because since 1769, we've never had an update to the King James. But see, the problem with that is we've had Bibles like the New King James and other editions of the King James, like 21st century and so on, like I said in the last video, and people just would not accept them as updates to the King James. Now we have a Bible that is actually an update to the King James. According to this guy, it is an update. But it's not a translation. That much he agrees with me on. It's an update, but it's not a translation. The New King James and the MEV are translations of the King James. This is just simply an update, no translation. And so for people on both sides to like, I can understand a little bit why the critical text people would kick this under the rug, but the KJV activists, KJV onlyists, you're just being religious. You're being cultic. If you think that this Bible doesn't deserve an investigation and a look through and all like that, I'm going to let Pastor here, vocational, I'm going to let him talk. Vocational or vocational, whichever one it is. I forget his first name. And I told you that I will put his name in the description. I forgot. Well, I did put in one of my videos the link to this video right here that we're looking at. I want to go through this video and I want to see what we can come up with in this video. I want to see what we can come up with. Let me make sure my laptop doesn't go out of battery. Okay, I'm good. All right. So here it is. I'm going to let him talk. I'm going to stop here and there and talk about some things that I agree with him. I agree with the whole video. Me and him are spot on about anything TR. Me and him are like, I'd like to meet this guy. He's a really great guy. I like his review in just a few minutes. You know me, I need 30 minutes to an hour or more to do my reviews. He did this in less than 30 minutes, I think. What is it? 12:25. I can't do nothing that fast. I can't think that fast. But he did this video real fast. It's not going to be 12:25 when it ends because I'm going to be cutting in here talking about some things, I think. But we're going to let this play a little bit, and I'm going to stop here and there and talk.
Okay, everybody, here's my copy of the SKJV, Simplified King James Version. Before I give you a preview about it,
I want to say real quickly, that copy that he has might not even sell that anymore because they have now the, how old is this video? That copy might be out of date, outprinted. His name is Vocational Ministry. He's going to give you his name in here somewhere. There's his email address right there. I'm going to start emailing him and start having one-on-one conversation with him. I really like this guy. He's cool. I love everything from the MEV and the New King James to this. He's done his reviews and talked about these Bibles. Someone that I agree with 100% on this, on YouTube. But as you can see my comments here, after he goes on and on about the SKJV. So after all this, is the MEV still your number one? Because the MEV is what he changed all the Bibles in his congregation to the MEV. His son and his wife read from the MEV. He reads from MEV. He got him like a Schuyler version or something of the MEV, I think, by now. You can also go here. You know, I did about 5 videos or more on the update to the MEV. He did an update to the MEV too. You can check it out. There is an online download for the SKJV. He doesn't know that. You can actually go to their website, or you can type it in and they'll take you to their website. You can't type in SKJV. You have to type in Simplified King James Version, because if you type in SKJV, they're going to take you to something else, and they're just going to take you to the KJV because they think that you don't know how to spell KJV. You put the S in there and the S is off. No, you got to type it out, Simplified King James Version. And here's my comments. I just got mine in the mail, large print, 2-tone leather. Oh my God, I'm glad I waited. I can read from the SKJV and go to the KJV-ER. He talked about KJV-ER in here, the New King James, and just a brief about the MEV. When I get stuck on something, no need to necessarily go to the CT to translate for me. Wow. And all these people have nothing but good comments here to say about them. Very helpful review, thank you. Totally agree with your comments on SKJV. Let me put a like there. I too agree. They need an app. Let me let him know. Alright, let me let him know. Everybody keeps saying it needs an app. The app is kind of slow. It's kind of clunky, but it works. I use it all the time. Well, it says it is a compilation, so maybe, just maybe, they actually did something that did not meet the requirement for a derivation copyright, which would be very, very good. Whatever that means. My main problem with the SKJV is that in the preface they say this powerful Bible retains the trustworthy translation work of the of the King James Version, while bringing many elements of style in line with modern usage. They further stated they made no attempt to retranslate or interpret any part of the text. Okay, so you're just going to have fussballs on every side. KJV, the princes also of Pharaoh. SKJV, the princes of Pharaoh also. Genesis, and it repented the Lord. SKJV, and it grieved the Lord. Every reference to the Lord repenting is removed and replaced by some other phrase. Relented, changed his mind, grieved, etc. Yeah, just like the New King James, because the Lord doesn't repent of anything. That's a mistranslation. That's what gets me about KJV people. That's what gets me. They didn't, like these ones that have come up in the last generation or two, they think that the KJV, and this is why a lot of people that are smart and more academic will use other translations, because they understand that some things are just not, you just don't talk like that. That's not what that is. King James is number one. The King James is the preservation. Yes, it's the standard, but you got to be honest about the errors. You got to be honest. SKJV turns stones to thighs. I know what verse he's talking about, and it's right. This is. He must be a King James onlyist. Getting goofy. Sounds like they did more than what they said they did. Okay. This is an update to the King James. You cannot have an update, even a slight update, if you don't change some things to make the text better. Just looking at this comment section, it makes me love the SKJV even more, because it's letting me know they did their homework. They didn't just throw another King James Bible out there, but they did actually update the King James Bible without translating it. Okay? Alright, I'm going to get out of here and let him talk.
You can look that video. I'll put the link in the description. But this is just a review of the actual translation. So I did a preview where we looked actually at the pages and a little bit of the text, just a little bit of a preview. But I kind of want to talk to you about the review. And let me go into that. Let's see here. I have some notes. First off, I want to tell you that this is probably my favorite real update of the King James.
Favorite real update
here. What I did was I just read a couple books of the Old Testament, a couple books of the New Testament. So I wanted to get a little bit of a feel for both. This is not a complete review. I did not read the Bible entirely through. I just read a couple books in the Old, a couple books in the New, to try to get a feel of how the translation was done. And I have some ratings here. So in regard to respecting the KJV base, how well did they respect the base of the KJV? Honestly, I gave it a 9 out of 10, but I easily could give it a 10 out of 10. It's just, they did a really good job at retaining the King James base, and I really like that. And the reason why is it seems like updates, when someone does an update, it's either they change way too much or they don't change enough. Like, they don't change enough in regards to it really wasn't an update, or very little update, it should have been, or they changed too much and now it's like a whole new translation. So as for actual KJV update, I give him a really high score. I've actually
now, before he does a rundown on the New King James, I want to clearly say that I think the New King James is almost perfect as far as what it translated. Me and him might be in a very tiny, slight disagreement there. I believe the New King James is almost perfect. There's some places. There's two things about the New King James that, and the last one is I noticed. The first thing is he's right. There's certain places like, for example, Proverbs 16:10, where it says the king gives a divine sentence. They changed that to the king uses divination, and he's talking about. And I know what the New King James is saying. It's saying that whether this is a king or a secular king, all kings have to do this. They have to make sure, just like, and you can go and you can get the example of how Pharaoh dealt with Moses and how Pharaoh dealt with Joseph in the Bible, how Nebuchadnezzar dealt with Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay? They always had the Christian man there when they had a dream or something, and they always had the officials, the soothsayers and the astrologers and all them other people there to do magic and all that kind of stuff. Okay, Moses threw his serpent down, and his astrologers or whatever, his magicians, threw their snakes down, but Moses' snake ate their snake, So, it was like always a battle. Okay? I understand what the New King James did there, but it shouldn't have done it. Okay? It should have translated that in a way to where, now a lot of critical text people, when you get to that verse, they say, oh, well, it's using like the third, and there is a third like definition for the word divination that has nothing to do with witchcraft or magic. But the New King James made a decision there that they shouldn't have made. They knew they were going to, they almost ruined the text, by doing that. Like, you shouldn't have did that. Okay? The other thing is new. I learned that from reading modern translations. I've learned that from the MEV, and that is, and this is where the MEV is almost perfect, because the MEV, if you're reading the MEV, you don't need to go to a modern translation to read anything. A modern translation cannot help the MEV Bible, because the MEV Bible is a modern translation. It has collected from the CT what it needs, as well as trying to be a King James update. It has collected from the CT, the critical text, what it needs. For example, they put the concubines in chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes, where every other modern translation has put it. They've watered down, they took out the sayers, like I said in the last video, in all the places where they talk about these goat men that were half goat and half male, that were part of witchcraft or were part of a demonic presence in certain areas or whatever. They got rid of that. Well, the New King James did too. Okay, and I don't believe that they got rid of it because it's accurate. I believe they got rid of it because they can't explain it, and you don't want nobody to bring that up in church history. Okay, and now it sounds like we got conspiracies going on in church history, but it's the Bible. It was in the King James. It was in the Bibles before the King James. How dare we take that out of there? Okay. And ruin a chance to study these things and know what these things mean and how they may affect our lives and our preaching. But, the King James has been soft in some places. That's my only other con with it. It's been soft in places where it should have went toe-to-toe with the modern translations on certain things. The MEV went toe-to-toe with the modern translations and said, hey, even though we TR, okay, we know Tai Chi too, okay? I know how to flip around and slam you on your head without using my left arm too. You know what I'm saying? One hand slam, body slam, okay? I know how to do that. I know how to do that crap too. And I didn't have to go, okay, and bow to the CT to do it. But if the CT is right, I'll take it. If it's wrong, I don't need it. And that's what the MEV did. And I'm kind of glad that James Lindsay is not only, because he said he was one of the editors of, I believe he said he was one of the editors of the NIV. So James Lindsay has done modern text version as well as TR. So this is where he comes from. This is his training in that. I'm kind of glad that he knew how to smooth out some things. And like I said in the last video, the MEV is not going anywhere. The MEV, like he says in here, like when you get to Lucifer, when you get to Psalms 91, the secret place, when you get to Philippians, robbery, Jesus did not count a robbery to be equal with God. When you get to stuff like that, the MEV should have backed down. They didn't need to change that. Like he says in here, these Bibles changing things that didn't need to be changed. You did not need to mess with the secret place. Even though the modern translations, all of them did it. Going all the way back to the Living Bible. Going all the way back to Bibles like the ASV and First RSV and all that kind of stuff. They changed that, I think. I think they did, even in those. They changed secret place to something else. You didn't need to tamper with that. That's beautiful. That is not a archaic situation. That is the Greek or the Hebrew that belongs there. To say that Jesus felt that equality with God was not something to be grasped is to say that he was so into the wickedness or the mortality of humans that he didn't want to be immortality anymore. He didn't want to be God anymore. He didn't want to be the Son of God anymore. He had wished he could just hang down here and marry one of these women, okay, and have some wicked sons or something. You know, what are you saying? That doesn't even make sense. No, it's the way it is in the New King James. He counted it not robbery to be equal with God. There's no way that that is what it says in the Greek. What it's saying in all the Lockman Foundation Bibles, except for the Amplified, because the Amplified is the Amplified decided to add lib to that verse and say that, well, it actually means this. Well, no, if you don't tell nobody what it means, it's saying that Jesus didn't like being God, is what it's saying. He had a problem with being God. Okay. Let me get off of that. He's right, though, on that part of it. There's a lot of things that, and I'm glad to read a Bible where it still says secret place. A brand new update where it says secret place. And where he did not count a robbery to be equal with God. Because even the MEV felt that they needed to mess with that, and they did not. Especially being you calling yourselves an update to the King James. And this is where I agree with this brother. Okay. Y'all translated stuff y'all didn't need to translate. And now we got a Bible that brought it back. And it's still easy to read. Now, I'm not too crazy about things that the New King James has stepped in. Thank you, New King James, for stepping in and translating that. I'm not too crazy about, hell, everybody goes to hell. There's no Hades, there's no Sheol, there's just hell. I'm not too crazy about that. I'm not too crazy about, the love of money being the root of all evil. Because, well, it is the root of all evil to a certain extent, but the proper translation of that would be a root. One of a few other things. That is the root of all kinds of evil. Because like sex, for example, is a root of all kinds of evils without the use of money. Okay? Jealousy doesn't need money to be evil. Envy, covetousness, does not need money to be evil. You don't need a red cent. Okay, so saying that money is the capital THE, the root of all kind of evil. No, many evils, just one evil, is a little bit of a mistranslation. Okay, now study to show thyself approved unto God. I don't have a problem with that. Because if you read the chapter, it's talking about the Word of God. But the modern translations felt that it has to be, it's diligent. And New King James and MEV decided to use the word diligent. Of course, the MEV in the second edition, the 25 edition, it decided to say strive, which is better than be diligent. To say strive. To show yourself approved to God. But I'm going to let him finish, but just to show you, and again, the copy that he has there, I don't know if that's still in stock most of the Bibles that he has out now, they got. I went on the site just a little bit ago. This Bible is moving up. It's coming up. Like, I went on the site here. Let me go to my phone. I went on the site here. Oh, my video's finally done recording. I just recorded 2 new videos. I hope you see them. They're done. So praise the Lord. But on the site, here it is. If I type in, if I type in Simplified King James Bible, let me see. Okay. You can go now. Bye. Bye. I already opened you. Bye. Goodbye. See ya. I think they just came out with 2 more new Bibles. Wow. Okay, they have a all black one, a 2-tone black one now. Whoa. Whoa, they got all kinds of hardback designs as well as leathers now. Wow. They got the blue one, I know that. They got, oh my goodness. Okay, that's the Bible Promise book. They got the, oh, this is the newest one right here. This is the newest one right here. I don't know if you can see that. That's the newest one. It's a 2-tone with a giant cross on it. It's leather, obviously. I don't know if that's leather or if that's a different material. It's a $35 Bible. Wow, there's a whole bunch of them. Wow, they got a green one. Wow, this is the one I got. Mine was $37 plus tax. Okay, his is not showing up in here. They got all these ones with, his got flowers on it now. More women are buying this Bible than men. Especially the ones with the flowers on them and all that kind of stuff. They're selling a whole lot of ones with flowers on them. They got a Chinese version. This here one is the most popular one. I don't know if you can see that. That's been out for a while. And you can get all these at Christian Books. You can get them all at Christian Books. But anyway, just between the time that I ordered my Bible and now, they've come up with some new leathers and some new hardbacks. And that one there, I don't see that one on there. Let's get moving here.
To retain the KJV base, it would be very hard for a King James onlyist person to use their normal arguments against this update. And I've heard maybe if the King James.
Did you hear that? It would be very hard for a King James onlyist to use their arguments against this update. I said that in my video. But they're going to use their arguments. Their arguments are Stephen Waldron. There's no these or thous. You gotta have the these or the thous. And this was put there because they're religious about a Bible instead of God. In other words, whatever we do wrong, we do not translate or let any other Bible. We do not retranslate or touch any other Bible. That is our religion. That is our Christianity. That is our faith. Our faith is not touching any other thing that calls itself a Bible except the King James. That is what they believe in. They don't read or touch anything else except to criticize it. Oh, they're lining up about 25 translations there when they want to criticize them all. But other than that, they're not allowed to read them and they're not allowed to touch them. It's a cult. And this is why I see why people like James White and Mark Ward lost their mind dealing with these people. But don't lose your mind so much that you forget that the King James is the preservation. It is the standard. Okay? Don't lose your mind so much that you forget where your Bible came from. Your Bible came from trying to compete against mine. If there was no competition, you wouldn't have a Bible. I can look and compare my version, my New King James or my MEV with any Bible out there and show you where y'all piggybacked off of what was going on in the King James. Y'all did not get that out of your text or out of the manuscripts. You piggybacked off of what is being already derived from the King James, just like in the new LSB. The word effeminate being used in 1 Corinthians 6:9, and the way they translate 6:9, they are trying to show you perfectly what abusers of themselves with mankind is. But if you don't need another translation, if abusers of themselves with mankind is a proper translation. But I love the LSB. I think out of all the Lockman Foundation Bibles and all of the Nestle Island Bibles, I think it's got to be one of the best. One of the best. It's not the best compared to my Amplified, but other than that, I think it's the best out of all of them. And then I think the CSB comes in second, and then the NLT comes last, whatever in between the two. But I'm glad, like he is, that we actually have an update without translation of the KJV.
Just say, well, if all it is a textual update, then we would be for it. We would support it if it was just a textual update, but they always change things. Well, I'd like to see how this one is actually not, if they would they accept something like this, that it is an actual text update. Now, in regards to easy to read, I give it a 10 out of 10, and I'm just going to be very honest with you when I say I actually believe that this one's easier to read than even the New King James. And maybe it's because I'm a few years into it, maybe I'm a little bit older. Maybe
that's true. It is easier to read than the New King James, the MEV, and the LSB. They took out the college level words, or, the LSB might be using college level words, the MEV using, some foreign words in there that it takes a college kid to understand. And the New King James doing the same thing, using more technical words in there, okay, to make it sound written when you don't really need all that. And I gotta admit, the SKJV, because of some of the words used, it doesn't sound wooden, but it does sound King James. It does not sound as wooden as the old King James or the New King James, but it does sound like a King James. Okay?
Because I'm a little more familiar, I don't know. What I do know is when I read it, and the books that I read, they were extremely easy to understand. They were easy to comprehend, and it was a very natural read. They did a very good job of making the language contemporary, where I could read it and leave language. Because if you remember when I did my KJV update, most of the King James is in modern English. There's just a few places that makes it kind of awkward and unique, but this one actually I think does a really good job. How does it compare to the KJV-ER? I'm going to be honest with you, and I have the KJV-ER right here. So this is the Simplified King James, this is the KJV-ER, you can see that. I actually think the Simplified King James does a better job. In regards to the King James Version Easy Reader, it's almost like they didn't go far enough. It's still King James. And they would say that it's still King James. It very much is. But the thing is, what they did to the text could have easily just been in the footnotes, like Thomas Nelson's reference Bibles put them in, and then you necessarily wouldn't even need the update. So they didn't actually do.
Okay, let me correct him there. The beauty of the KJV-ER is that instead of taking the words out of the text, you have a choice of the modern word and the old-fashioned words if you feel that you love those words. And you can read the KJV-ER and just not read the translation. So you have a translation there where you got all these words underlined, and if you are pro King James and you're that well versed in the King James, you know what all these words mean, you have your own meaning for them, you could just read and say, oh, it's an underlined word because it's controversial, they say, or there's other words, and just keep on reading. You don't even have to look at what the translation is at the bottom of each text. You can just read it the way you read any other King James. So a lot of people will choose the KJV-ER over the SKJV. Matter of fact, a lot of people are spot on with the KJV-ER being a good KJV helpful tool, because you do have all those archaic words except the these and the thous, but you do have, it lets you know in there, at least in the KJV-ER, that wherever they use the word ye, there's a P next to the word you to let you know that means ye, which means all of y'all. Okay, and then the thines and all like that, there's like little single syllables there to let you know that means, ye, thee, thine, thy, and all like that, to mean all of y'all, or one of y'all, or whatever it may be. Okay. Again, like I said in the last video, I don't need the these and the thou. And when I did read the King James and I read the ye's, I didn't stop and think, well, he's talking about all of y'all. I just, even though I knew what that meant because my uncle trained me on that, I still didn't see it that way. I just looked at it like a dumb way of saying you. Just a dumb way of saying you. I don't need the these and the thous. Nobody does. You think you do, but you don't. Okay? But I can understand why the KJV-ER is the way it is. And I hope that the KJV-ER, as well as the SKJV, as well as the NEV and the New King James, okay, I hope they all are here with us forever. Just like your LSB is going to be around here for a long time, your American Standard is going to be around here for a long time, NIV, CSB, they're going to be here for a long time. I'm hoping that we can have some Bibles on our side that ain't going to keep falling off the wayside. They're going to keep on growing and growing and growing and having some years to their name until they become ancient, like the King James itself did, until they become ancient. Matter of fact, that's what the King James translators said. They said they're going to let the New King James become ancient, and they're not going to worry about an update until it is truly outdated. Okay, they're just going to let it get old, because that's part of it being a New King James, like the King James itself. They're going to let it grow old to the point to where you go back in time and voila. All these other Bibles are saying one thing, but this Bible here is saying something that we missed out on. Okay, which I'm finding that out from spending some time in this SKJV. But I can understand where he doesn't understand what the difference is between having a Bible like the KJV-ER and a Bible like the SKJV. The KJV-ER lets you know what the King James is saying with all the archaism. Okay, and there may be words in there that you don't see them as archaic, and you feel that you use them in your preaching. You can still do that because they're still there. They're just underlined. And then not only can you do that, but you can tell your congregation when you read from the KJV-ER, okay, it is this or it is this. If you don't understand this, let's call it this. This or this. Okay, you have two words there instead of one. And that makes for a beautiful, beautiful, not only translation, but because it's not really a translation, not only for a good translation, but a good tool for preaching, a good tool for educating yourself in the King James Scriptures. So I can see the difference there. I can see why the KJV-ER needs to be the way it is and why it shouldn't go anywhere. I think I approve of more of the KJV-ER than any footnoted King James, where the footnotes are at the bottom, as well as the defined King James. I think the KJV-ER is best when it comes to that kind of characteristic.
So I actually think this is an actual update of the King James in a way that we can understand. I thought that was really well done. How does it compare to the New King James? And and what I liked about in regards to the KJV-R, SKJV, I feel like they updated the right things where the KJV-R didn't go far enough. They didn't update enough of the right things. Okay. Now, in regards to the New King James, what I liked about my initial interaction with the SKJV.
Okay. The KJV-ER didn't go far enough. Okay. The KJV-ER did not touch the King James at all. The SKJV did touch it a little bit. The KJV-ER did not touch the King James at all. All it did was underline the archaic words and within the text give you another better, more modern equivalent or proper equivalent of those words. Okay? It did not really touch the King James. As far as updating anything, the updates are in the underlying words, the equivalents, the translations to the underlying words. There's your updates. I don't understand where he's going with that. This slipped right past me last time. He said, wait a minute, hold up. What is there for the KJV-ER to update? That's not what the Bible is for. Okay? The KJV-ER underline, maybe some of the underlying words. Maybe he's thinking of that word sayer. Because in both the SKJV and the KJV-ER, they don't bother that word sayer. Because they believe, the King James translators and those of King James biblical history, they believe that the sayers were actual, real, half goat, half men that were of the devil, that were manifested here on our planet in this haunted place way out there, that was a desolate place. And if you read your New Testament and you read Jesus and where these demons hung out at and all like that, and if you believe in the Nephilim or the giants in Genesis chapter 6, and if you believe that any of the books of the Apocrypha were linked at all, one little dot, towards any of the 66 books of the Bible at all, you gotta say maybe there's something going on there that the modern translations ain't sharing with us, that the New King James and NEV are just covering it up. They're not letting us know what those words mean. But now when you have a word like sayer in there, you have to find out what that means, and it's going to provoke you to find out what it means. And there's a reason why that word was left in the SKJV. And there's a reason why it was not underlined and given a translation in the KJV-ER, because they believe that the sayers are what they are. It's not a shaggy goat. It's not they left it underlined to let you know that is naturally the King James. And that is naturally, so maybe that's what he's talking about, like they didn't underline words like the KJV-ER and give you the modern equivalent. Well, there is no modern equivalent unless you change the whole word. A sayer is not just a shaggy goat. A sayer is a half goat, half male. Half human male. Or half demon-possessed angel. Or something of that sort. And y'all might think I'm crazy when I say that, but you can't just override stuff like this. You got to stop and say, and like the guy said in the 1-hour documentary I watched, all the translations, including the Geneva and the other ones, They talked about the sayers. It wasn't until after 1769 that we stopped talking about these things. So, I commend the KJV-ER as well as the SKJV for keeping that untouched. Okay? The KJV-ER did not feel that needed to be underlined, because they don't want you to think that word that word needs to be translated, because it doesn't. It's something that was going on there, and that's what separates the King James from your modern translations. Okay, just like he's going to say in here, stirred up the water. Okay, and just like the angel coming down and stirring up the water in John chapter 5. What are we taking that out for? Is there any evidence that did not happen? None. There's more evidence that it did happen than it is that it didn't happen. Okay, what are you bothering that for? Why are you taking these verses out of the Bible? This is why we love Bibles like the KJV-ER and the SKJV.
Is they actually didn't update the right things. And one of the things that when I was first carrying, because I carried the New King James for like 12 years. I carried it for longer than that. I carried it for a long time. And the issue that I had with the New King James while using it was, it's a good, accurate translation. It served me well. I really went well. But in regards to its updating of the King James, because KJV is in the name, they updated things that weren't necessarily out of date and they weren't necessarily incorrect. They just updated them. So they kind of updated things they didn't need to update. I'm like, you know what? That should have just been left alone. Like, that was completely contemporary, easy.
I agree with that.
And that was kind of like unnecessary. And it was almost like they were looking for things to update. And some would say they did that because of copyright, but the SKJV is also copyrighted. So what I like about the SKJV in regards to New King James is that they didn't update things that didn't need updated. I like that an awful lot. So, and I guess I'll say this.
Yeah, like that Proverbs 16:10. They didn't need to update that. They screwed it up. They put divination in the Bible when they could have just left it like it is. Every other modern translation or every other TR Bible got it right. The New King James decided to tamper with it and messed it up. And the SKJV and the MEV left it the way it is. A divine sentence is on the lips of the king. He must not transgress with his words. Okay, they didn't need to put divination in there and get everybody freaked out. Oh my God! Oh, the King James the New King James practiced divination. They brought war to themselves. They didn't need to do that. That did not need to be translated.
If this was 16 years ago, 17 years ago, and let's say 16 years ago, I was starting down this road of looking into textual criticism. Actually, I'd say more 15 years ago. And I was looking into textual criticism, and I was looking into a Bible to carry and a Bible to use. What would I have used out of the? Because I didn't end up using the King James. Back then, when I was first really digging into the subject, but also the Bible, I would have really probably preferred the SKJV over the New King James, because the SKJV was close enough to the King James back then for me that I would have been a lot more. I would have just enjoyed having it more so than the New King James.
I'm the other way around with that. I would have jumped on that New King James like jumping on a hot girl. You know what I mean? Like, hey baby, where you going? Come back here. I'd have jumped on that thing. Okay, and I did later on. Now, the reason why I didn't jump that high and fast was because I was already reading translations like the Living Bible, Good News Bible, and the NIV. Okay, so I didn't need to jump that far because I'm already over-translated. Okay, but later on, as I started to get older and mellow down a little bit about translation philosophy, I discovered the New King James, and it brought me back to, like, it just opened up my eyes. Okay, and now, because of all these arguments against the King James and the way they're trying to flush the King James down the toilet, and they are, in order to cover up their mistakes in the modern vernacular, they're coming up with these made-up overnight scrutinies against the King James that are just horrific to me and actually sabotage and criminal, in my opinion. They're going to stand before God, in my opinion. Okay, that's how bad they are, some of these guys. But now I feel like it's not just good enough to jump way out there in the middle of the ocean and meet up with the New King James. Wait a minute, slow down. You know, like the King James, if you do what they weren't able to do back then, you do that now, then we have a King James that is allowed to be King James and doesn't need to be swept off the map. We can still use the King James because we have this device that really fits the bill. Okay, and I think that's what the SKJV is. It really fits the bill. I'm glad I got it, and I'm glad I waited until I got it, and yeah.
That's not to say it's better, it's just in regards to what I was looking for back then. So then he talked about the things I liked about the SKJV that I saw was, one, it kept the strengths of the KJV, and what I mean by that is there's certain translations that the KJV holds that are not based off modern social agendas. You see things like male prostitutes, and you see things like...
Well, I agree with the modern translations on that. If you look at the history of sodomites, you'll find out that the kings of the Bible, the foreign kings, especially when you get down to Jesus' time, the Greek people, Babylonian Greek, okay, they had harems of gay boys in their collection. I just recently heard that some of them were captives. They were, human trafficking goes all the way back to the Bible. Some of them were slaves. They were actually slaves or children of slaves. And they were having these way with these boys. These boys were forced to be gay. Okay? Now, we got a lot of that today when you get into human trafficking and letting the LGBTQ community think that they can do whatever they want to do. And then you wanna act like you need 24 years to investigate some boy being molested. How old is he? Okay, he was molested. He's under the age of 18. He was molested. How old was the boy that molested him? Oh, he was almost hitting 30. Oh, that boy was molested. What's so hard about it? Okay. But these kings and their officials were forcing slave captors. Okay, and then if you look at the books of First Kings and Second Kings, and the reign of David and how David went after the Philistines and that, and he got rid of he went after Asherah, the goddess Asherah, and part of the god of Asherah was male prostitution, and some of the stuff you cannot find out unless you see it in modern translations, because the wording that we use in the KJV don't take us there. So this is where he needs to relax a little bit, because if you look this up, you'll see that going all the way back to between 1 Samuel to Chronicles, okay, you'll see that during David's reign, there was a lot of sodomite activity going on, a lot of male prostitution. A sodomite is normally, most of the time, a male prostitute. Usually the sodomite is the bottom. Now back then, unless you were a bottom, you were not even considered gay or homosexual or sodomite if you were a bottom. Okay? Today, if you lay down with a little boy, which that's called child molestation. It's not called homosexuality. Well, it's called both. But if you lay down with a little boy, or if you lay down with another man, even if you're straight and you lay down with another man, or you lay down with a trans woman and you want to consider yourself straight because you lay down with a trans woman instead of an actual hairy, shaggy man, okay? It's still gay, but, okay, that's not considered a sodomite. That's considered a straight man involving himself in gay. In the Bible, it's considered, in these modern translations like CSB, NIV, it's men that have sex with other men. So both words are in there. All three words are in there between the CSB, NIV, LS, and the LSB. All four words are in there. There's the effeminate, there's the sodomite, well, they use another term for sodomite, and then there are aggressive, and it says this in the NASB and the LSB, and I think the Amplified, it says that there are aggressive homosexuals would be like straight men that are using little sissy boys or transgenders for sexual pleasure. You have aggressive homosexual, and you have the bottoms. We're not allowed to call them that outside, inside the Bible. The sodomites. That's what a sodomite actually is. A sodomite is one that lives off of sodomy. He goes around loaning his butt cheeks to men to get off because there's a shortage of women, or because these men just love that kind of sex. Okay? The King James maybe did not call everything sodomite. Everything's not sodomite if you break it down. It's sodomite if you just want to call it all evil and homosexual, which we should anyway. But the modern versions are breaking it down piece by piece for you to let you know who everybody really is. Whereas in the King James, it's just sodomites. And there are male prostitutes, like it says in King James, but there are aggressive homosexuals, like it says in the LSB. Aggressive homosexuals. In other words, he's either a straight dude that's using homosexuality for pleasure, or he's, as a fetish or something, or he's a gay dude who is more straight than he is gay, and he's just using a little sissy boy for pleasure, okay? Or bisexual, however you want to put it. It's putting it all in there. And so when you mix the two texts together, the best of the TR and the best of the CT, what you get is you get a complete understanding of the entire situation. Okay? Because sodomites are known for anal sex. But what the modern translations are trying to explain to you, there's the guy that's performing the anal sex, and there's the guy that's receiving the anal sex. Now, maybe we don't really need to, in all spirituality and holiness, we do not need to, worry about which one is which. It's all sodomy to make things easier. But the modern versions, finally, in at this hour, they're breaking it down for you. And I really don't see nothing wrong with that, because we live in a world where people think that one's right and one's wrong. The only thing that is right is a man, a biological male, and a biological woman in holy matrimony before ever having sex. The first time that they had sex, they were consummating their marriage. They had sex on their honeymoon. That is the only thing that there is right. There are no boyfriends and girlfriends. There are no males with transgenders. There are no lesbians can do it, but men can't do it. Or I don't know why the NIV and the CSB left the lesbians out of 1 1 Corinthians 6:9. I don't know why they did that, but we're talking about all homosexuals, not just male homosexuals, not just men having sex with men, but women having sex with women too. Okay? It's all wrong. Okay? But, we don't, look at that look on his face. We don't want to confuse ourselves. Okay? So if it makes it better for you, just call everything sodomite, that's fine with me. Okay?
Where they're removing some of these things, or they're putting these things in, they're retranslating things, and you're like, why do they put that? Well, because, and they do a little more interpreting. I like that the King James didn't use that kind of stuff. And what I liked about that is it kept the strengths of the King James. And one of the arguments I always use for people to at least own a King James, even if they don't normally carry it or read it, is that it was translated in a time where these social agendas we see now, and I'm talking about also not just the liberal side, but there's even a conservative side of an agenda here that influences translation. And I said that one of the strengths of the King James was it was translated 400 years ago. And so they might have had their own social agendas, but they weren't the same social agendas. And that kind of gives you a basis. And if you don't study the languages, the original languages, that was a benefit to having it. One of the other things I really liked about it was the names of God. Now, when I was in Bible college, I took a course called Spiritual Formation, where we had to study.
Let me right there before he finishes that. The names of God, both Yahweh and Jehovah, are in the SKJV. Certain places. Now, in most of the Old Testament, they use Jehovah, and I agree with him. I love going back to Jehovah Jireh and Jehovah Nissi and things like that, because you can't go Yahweh Nissi or Yahweh Adonai or anything like that. You have to be, it's just Yahweh, like it is in the LSB. Everything's Yahweh. But in certain passages in Genesis and Exodus, there is like Jehovah this and Jehovah that, and for that reason, they put Jehovah back in the SKJV. They also, in certain parts of Psalms, use the word Yahweh. Now, I don't know why they use them both, but they use both Yahweh and Jehovah in here. And in certain places, they use Jah, and other places, Yah, to abbreviate the two. It's amazing, but makes for a very, very, very interesting Bible.
The names of God. And when we did study the names of God, now the Bible college I went to was critical text. The professors used New American Standard. New American Standard was the big one. The Old Testament professor liked the NIV. But they were modern translation advocates. They weren't KJV people. But when we went to spiritual formations and we were learning about the names of God, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nissi, such like that, we would go back to the King James because the King James actually had those in the text. So one of the questions I had was, does this Bible retain those names? Because we know that the New King James takes them out. Of course, it puts them in the little footnote, but it takes them out of the working text. And sure enough, it's in there. So what I liked about it was the names of God that was in the King James are also within the SKJV.
Well, one thing is, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the New King James, it will tell you what Jehovah Nissi, for example, means in the New King James. Whereas the NEV doesn't tell you neither. It just tells you that it was named. It does give it a name. I think the King James tells you why. No, I think the NEV jumps to why it was named, but New King James gives you the name and the reason why they named it. But they named it like, name of the place was the Lord will provide, which there's no such thing. It was Jehovah something. Okay? Whereas the LSB, I believe, just says Yahweh provides or something like that. But there's a lot of things that you cannot click onto the word Yahweh where you can click them onto the word Jehovah. Again, the word Jehovah and the word Yahweh are used in the SKJV.
and they're still in there, and I like that. So if I'm working with a disciple, I'm talking about the names of God, or someone who's trying to grow in their faith, I can actually see those in the text and use those for them. I also like that they kept the exposition quality. It could be very well exposited. It has the same strengths and weaknesses in regards to the exposition of the King James. Now, things that I wish that they did have that it doesn't have is I wish it had an online version. I think one of the things that would really keep me if I was at King James.
It does have an online version, an online download. It's not an app. It is a SKJV from their website where you just put in your email address and then they'll send you the link and you click on it and it pops up, or you just go to your email address and click on it and the link will pop up and out comes this SKJV. It's kind of running slow to me compared to other apps. You can download it on, I don't know if you can use it in other places, I don't know about that, but I know that as far as having it on your laptop or your phone, you can easily use it. And my only problem with it is that you can't really type in the verse that you want to read in it. It gets confused when you do that. So what you do is you go back to the preface, which is hard to do because it doesn't have like an escape route to the back to the preface. But you go to the list of books and you like, oh, well, I want to read Ephesians chapter 2, verse 5. So you blow it up, you make the page bigger, then you click on Philippians, and it will take you right to the presentation page of Philippians, and you can read the presentation page, and then you click the page turner to get to the page and verse you want to. You know, it's not like the YouVersion app where you click on and go straight to the verse you want to. You got to keep clicking and clicking and clicking, and then you scroll down to the verse you want to. But there's an app for it. It's not the best thing in the world. It's got to be the slowest app I've ever met, and it's got to be the most unfriendly to use. But that's where they're at right now. But there is an app. I use it every day. So I don't know what exactly he's looking for in the app that he's not seeing it, but there is an app for the SKJV. All you got to do is go to the website and look at Online Bible. They'll ask you for your email address. You put in your email address, and boom, they'll send you the app. You click on it, and you click on the X, and it opens up, and it'll show you the preface and that, and then you will get to the list of books, and you click on the list of books, and that's how you navigate your way around the SKJV. However, to get back to the list of books after you've read, it's almost like Xing out of the app almost. Sometimes I have to X out of the app, or I got to keep clicking pages to get back to it, or something like that. And you can't type in what you want because they get lost. It kind of like freezes when you type in what you actually want to go. So what I do is I blow up the list of books, click on the book that I want to, scroll down, read my verse, and then I just exit out of the app and let it refresh, and then boom, I'm right back to the list of books. That's the way I do it. But there is an app. He keeps saying there's no app. There is an app. It ain't what you're looking for, but there's an app.
These are modern King James, really advocate, big strong advocate. I would want an online format to be able to have an online database or online base like Bible Gateway or even if their own website had it, where I could look up the text there and actually have it to be able to copy and put it in to a sermon, or if I'm writing, I'm big in writing, I like to copy and paste over, so if I ever use it now, I literally have to type out everything. And that might sound lazy, maybe I'm a little lazy. I still would like it. There's a reason why Bible Gateway and stuff are popular. The other thing I wish it did is it got rid of the italics. So one thing that King James and New King James do is they put the words that are not in the Greek in italics.
The italics have been there for years. They're only non-italicizing what's already in italics in the actual King James. The actual King James still exists. So that is why they didn't put it in italics, because they're not trying to get rid of the Old King James are just making a new one. Everything in that King James has been in that italics since 1769. You don't have to italicize something that's already italicized when you look at the original. To me, I've heard people use the italicized words to say that this isn't the Word of God. So they figure they could ignore something because it's in italics. Well, I treat the italicized word as the Word of God because it's only there for clarity, because in most places without it you would be a little bit confused. You wouldn't know how to navigate without the italics. The italicized words are just as important as the rest of the text, in my opinion. They just weren't necessarily found in the original manuscripts, but they were put there so that you could navigate, okay? To me, the italics, to me, as long as the italics are there, I don't care if they're italicized or if they're just bold text, because they belong there. And
so what words are from the Greek and what words are added in for clarity. And in regards to this, at least this version, all those italics are removed. It's just the text. And you're not sure what are put in from translators and what's put in from the Greek. So I wish they would have kept that. Now let me conclude. If I would not have carried the NKG, I probably would not have carried the New King James Version if I had this version. If I had this version when I was younger, I probably would have carried this version and then perhaps would have moved over to the New King James later, maybe. But I probably would have carried this one because of the people I was around and the positions I held back then. I probably would have carried this one. I am going to start recommending this Bible to people who say, "Man, I love the King James, and I've carried the King James, or my church uses the King James, and I
might start doing the same thing. I might actually call SKJV and ask them, "Is there any way I can help you advertise and get this Bible out there?" As well as the MEV. I might call James Lindsay or try to get a hold of their editors or something and say, "Is there any way I can help you guys get this Bible out there and get it sold?" And I've even been tempted to buy copies of the MEV and give them away to people for free for Christmas or whatever. I don't know. I think they just got a new one out. It's blue and I forget, but maybe the hardback. The hardbacks are real cheap. I'm wondering if I should get a bunch of copies and just give them to random people to get that Bible out there and get it sold, because I want them to get this MEV out on the market. I'm so glad that the MEV is on the U version. That's a big plus. And I can't wait for them to get the SKJV on a Bible app like he said. Can't wait. But I'm excited. I got a King James Bible that I read it just like all the rest of my Bibles. It doesn't sit over there. It's over here now, where all my favorite Bibles are. Not over there anymore. It's over here. Okay? So, I'm excited about that.
But I just really can't, really struggle. And there's people who struggle reading, and that's where King Jamesers will come and say, "Well, I don't see why it's so difficult. It's the third or fourth or fifth or whatever grade reading level." It's not as simple as you think, okay? It's not as simple as you think it is, and maybe for you it's great. But when you're looking, I work with lots of people, and there are people who just have comprehension struggles.
I'm going to say again, I don't really have comprehension struggles, but I am used to more modern versions of Scripture. And I think the SKJV is, again, like he said in the beginning, I can understand the SKJV better than I can understand the New King James, the MEV, the LSB, and the King James. Okay, so it's really it is easy to read. Now, like I said in the last video, and I used to do this back when I used to preach. I did this with both the New King James and the King James back when I used to preach in church. I did this with both. I went to the Strong's and looked up what words mean. I used the Strong's dictionary to and use that to get up there and preach and know what the words mean. So I think every smart King James reader has a Strong's. I don't know too many people that do. Even my ex-wife, even though she didn't read the Bible that much, she knew, okay, to go to the Strong's when she read her Bible. She always had a Strong's somewhere nearby where she could go in there and say, what does this mean? Okay. I encourage you, if you are reading the King James, New King James, I encourage you to find the Strong's concordance and use it in your study, because it is like it goes one-on-one, hand-in-hand with any kind of King James reading. So, okay. And I'm telling you, you'll have no problem navigating your way around any King James, not only the SKJV, but the regular King James. You'll have no way of navigating your way around if you have a Strong's Concordance.
And I'm going to recommend this to them, because my goal is that they learn the Bible.
Amen.
Even if it comes from a modern updated translation. That's what I want. Maybe that's not what other people want. That's what I want. So I want to start recommending people who want to use the King James but really struggle with it. And I want to recommend this Bible as well as KJV-O, MEV, and New King James. But I want to actually recommend this one as an actual update of the King James. Because I consider translations such as the New King James and MEV as actually being modern versions that use King James as a base manuscript, not as an actual update of the King James. This is an actual update of the King James text, and if someone's looking for that, this fits that bill. And so, at the end of the day,
I put in the comments, I think you read it already, the way he's talking about the SKJV. Now, I know he reads the MEV to his congregation. This is how we met, okay? He reads the MEV to his congregation. He's pro-MEV. He was pro-MEV back before it ever got updated. He was when it came out back in 2008 or whatever. He's been pro-MEV from the first it came out. He has a whole library full of MEV versions, hardbacks, and different leatherbacks. His whole family reads from the MEV. His church reads from the MEV because that's what he preaches from. I'm wondering if he's going to put the MEV on his shelf and start having everybody read the SKJV. I personally feel that if he's already reading from the MEV and he's got his church denomination all buying MEVs, then he should stick with that, because the MEV is going to be more academic in the long run or the short run. It's going to be more academic. He can use the SKJV to study things. He can get up there and quote from it, but I wouldn't just turn around and go from MEV to SKJV. I would continue where you are, because the MEV is going to naturally be more academic, and it's going to be better as far as quoting and reading, since you've already been doing that. Okay.
I actually believe this right here is what an update actually looks like.
Nobody, that's not what an update looks like. This bad boy right here, mine looks better. I got the better one. I waited. That one was what they had when they first came out. I got the better one. This is what an update actually looks like, baby. This right here, baby, look at it and weep, okay? This is what an update actually looks like. Thank you very much, okay? And I love it. I love it.
If someone's looking for a KJV update, this is what I'm going to recommend. This is what I actually think it look like. So, good job to Barber Books, who published this. and I'm going to start recommending it to people. Thank you. And so that's all I have for today. You guys have a great day, and God bless.
So there you have it, folks. Bio-vocational ministry. I want to get his name. I didn't get his name. What is his name? What is his name?
A review, just a basic review of the Simplified King James versions. Hey guys, I'm Jonathan. This is Bivocational Ministry. Today I'm going to do a review.
Pastor Jonathan. I think he's like, I don't know if he's Baptist or Orthodox or whatever he is, but let me go to his page and see if his actual full name shows up. Pastor Jonathan, don't forget that. As you can see, he's got 2 reviews here on the Simplified King James Version. And you'll see here he has a few reviews on the MEV. He talks about the MEV a lot in here, the KJV, the New King James, you name it. I want to see if we can get his name. Okay, it doesn't look like we're going to get it. But Pastor Jonathan, for starters, Pastor Jonathan. Bivocational ministry. Bivocational ministry. So when it comes to anything Texas Receptus, he's a guy that you can go to and look up a lot of the stuff that he's talking about. Here is his MEV review. This is where he tells you that everybody in his family reads the MEV and his congregation reads the MEV as well. This is where he talks about the SKJV. And if you scroll down, it ain't let me scroll down, but if you go to, well, let me go to videos. If you go to videos, you'll see that you'll scroll down and there's a whole lot of other different Bible types and studies, and most of it is all going to be Texas Receptus that he talks about. Okay, so there you have it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this wasn't too long. I hope you enjoyed this, but this is my last official review of the SKJV. My next review will be, well, my next Bible on the SKJV will be comparing scriptures in the SKJV to scriptures in other versions. And if other people, finally review this Bible and start to talk about it and do reviews on it, I will be talking about them as well. God bless you. Thank you for watching. See you soon with more.